My name is Dylan. I am 15 years old. I'm ninth grade, and I've had HIV since the day I was born. Once I found out, 2 years later, my mom had passed away of AIDS. So that's how I got it from her.
My name is Shakina Conway. I am 20 years old, and I have been diagnosed HIV positive since birth on October 10th, 1986, and I currently live in Miami.
Well, my name's Prairie Rose, looks twice. I'm 24 years old, and I've been infected with HIV for 4 years.
My name is Sean. I'm 32 years old. I live in Virginia, and I've been living with HIV for over 20 years.
My name is Rosalinda. I am 35 years old, and I've been living with HIV for about 13 years. Mi nombre es Rosalinda. Tengo 35 años y hacen como 13 años que he sido infectada con el SIDA.
My name is Dia. I'm 11 years old. I'm in the 5th grade, and I'm HIV positive. I've been HIV positive since I was born. I was born with it. I have HIV and my mom has AIDS, and my dad has HIV and hepatitis C.
My name is Tyler. I'm 24 years old. I have been living with HIV for about 3.5 years, and I currently live in Ohio.
My name is Leanna. I'm 15 years old. I've been living with HIV for 15 years. I'm a sophomore. My name is Alora. I'm 19 years old. I am a freshman in college. I was diagnosed HIV positive on St. Patrick's Day in 1992 alongside my younger brother. He's 2 years younger. I was 6 years old and he was 4. It was my mom's birthday.
My name's Jessica and I'm 30 years old. I've been HIV positive for 11 years and I live in Gulfport, Mississippi. I know that I became infected just by having casual sex with somebody that I knew. It was, we weren't really dating, but we kind of hung around in the same circle, and so it just happened. One of those drunk nights. I was drinking, and
3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was infected with HIV. I was seeing someone who I thought that I was in love with. I went to college at a small liberal arts college in Westerville, Ohio. I grew up in Dublin, Ohio, so I went from, I think, one bubble to the next. And HIV was something that wasn't even on my radar. And I had come out to my family as being gay when I entered college. And so I met this guy, and I was head over heels in what I thought was going to be, the rest of my life, and turned out to be this summer fling. But I took this person home to meet my family. It was someone I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, and I trusted them so much. It was my first serious relationship. And I thought that we were monogamous, and I was wrong. I was monogamous and my partner was not. And I found out that they had been cheating on me, and we broke up. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, I found out that I had gonorrhea, and so my life was kind of like a spiral at the moment. I was really scared, and I went and I got tested for everything I could think of. I went to my family doctor, which was so embarrassing because it was, do they even know anything about HIV? Because I don't, in this little town in Ohio. But, I was like, test me for everything. You test me for the bird flu, because I don't know what I could have gotten from this person. And I was so terrified, and I was so happy because all of my results came back negative, and I had no idea that such a thing could exist, like the window period, and that really in my body, HIV was already taking hold on my life, on my future. And it wasn't until months and months later when I got a phone call that my life changed forever and I tested positive.
I was infected by a guy who I thought, when we first met, it was at the beginning of the semester, the beginning of the school year, and I was like, wow, I just, I have to get to know him because he sounds so nice and every girl wants to be with him. And the thing that really got me was he was from Chicago and my aunt lives there, and in November everybody went home for fall break. Everybody but me. I didn't have the money to travel home, so I just stayed. And it was during then we got to know each other. We played pool and we had fun and we just enjoyed ourselves on campus. And in November was when we decided to make our relationship sexual. And the first time we used the condom, and every time thereafter. But in February, for some odd and strange reason, we didn't. And we were completely sober. And he knew where my condoms were. I mean, they were always in the top drawer right next to the bed. And he just didn't reach in and grab one. So it's like, oh, okay. But we broke up after that, and we decided that we'd just be friends. And he was really nice. I mean, he was just really nice. He actually had the same birthday as me. We were born on the exact same day, just 2 years apart. So I was like, oh wow, that's even better. And when everybody found out he was HIV positive, they looked right back at me and said, well, so is she. And it was just something that we had to go through together. And I never felt hatred towards him. Most people thought I should. But when he was in trouble, I was there. When he needed a friend, I was there. I never looked at him in a bad way. I love him more as my best friend than I've ever loved anybody in my life. He knew how bad that the kids were going to give me, the other college students were going to give me when they found out I was HIV positive. And he told one of our instructors he wished he was there to protect me.
I had my partner, and we were together for 3 years. And there had been rumors that he was positive, and he and I talked about it. And before we actually started living together or having any type of sexual encounters, we actually went and both got tested. And I went through my doctor, came back with a negative result. He, in turn, had went to an anonymous test site, and this was years ago when they did not put names on the test, and brought me back a negative result. Later on, I found out that he had used his brother's results. A mí me infectaron por la pareja que yo tenía. Él y yo estábamos de novio hacía 3 años, y esta persona pues no me dijo a mí que él estaba infectada, y yo descubrí que él en sí estaba infectado porque tuve un hijo que fue diagnosticado con el SIDA cuando tenía 4 meses de nacido.
I remember wanting to, when I was first told I was HIV positive, I wanted to just go along with life as it normally was for me. I just turned 12 that summer, and I just kind of wanted to hang out with my friends, and I found a couple of my friends I couldn't hang out with anymore because their parents were freaked out about transmission of the virus. And I kind of remember that I started hanging out with my cousin a lot, my like 7 or 8 year old cousin. And I don't know if it was because I wanted to be that young again, and maybe it was because I felt safe because he was family. I think there was a lot of subconscious things going on, but I remember I just, you know, really didn't want to deal with it. You know, I wanted life to be normal, but on one hand I knew normal had changed. Normal for me wasn't going to be the same as it was for my friends.
There's really not much to it because, well, my T-cell and my viral load has always been real good, so I haven't had to take medication. And most of the time, I forget I have it. Just like any normal kid.
I cope with it. I'm a very easygoing person. I'm not someone who will sit, I'm not depressed at all. I'm not someone who will sit and cry over it. I live life every day like it's my last. Like, I live life to the fullest. And if someone gets to know me, I'm that type of person who would laugh about absolutely everything, and I just, yeah, that's what I do.
There are many ways that I'm learning how to cope with my diagnosis. I'm going out and learning about how it's affecting not only my community but the nation, and not only the nation but the world. And I'm seeing that it's still a very big issue globally, and I want to be a part in helping others, and that's my way of helping myself understand HIV.
I have been discriminated against because I have HIV. One time I was going on the AIDS walk, and there was a whole bunch of cameras around, and I did an interview with them, and like 20 people saw me in the interview, and then the next day and in the newspapers that they all saw me, and then the next day they just were afraid to be around me. And it made me really sad that some kids don't know how the AIDS work, and I just want to do this tour just to let people be aware of HIV and AIDS. Well, the thing is, when they first found out, it was kind of hard for me to cope with it, but I just got sick and tired of people being scared of me, so I just walked up to them and I gave them a note, and it told them every little thing that you can get AIDS or can't get AIDS from. And then they finally just accepted that fact and just left me alone. And they had no problem with it after that. But I probably deep and down inside them that they were probably still scared, I think.
I think sometimes it's not necessarily what's the worst thing that someone can do or say isn't necessarily said in words. Treatment can be just as much. And when I first moved to one of my small towns, I remember the way parents would look at you or react to you or treat you in relation not only to their own children but to themselves. And they would look at you like this poor little thing, and you knew that they weren't looking at any of the other kids that way. It was just you. And so that definitely made as much of a statement as any word could have. Or the way that if you moved, they'd move around you, things like that. And so for me, it's been more actions than words. The subtleties of body language have definitely said more to me than words have.
Yeah, when I was younger, one time I was outside of my playpen and my mom could see me out through the kitchen window, and she was doing dishes, and my aunt told some people, and this car came up and tried to hit me, and they were about that close away from the playpen I was in. And we had a note on our door saying, "Be out in 24 hours or be dead." a lot of stuff has happened.
I think being HIV positive just naturally comes with discrimination and stigma on a plate. It's, you know, it's the entree and the appetizer, unfortunately. I think that everyone faces it in different doses. Personally, I have never truly been faced with a hard situation. I've heard the rumblings, I've heard the rumors, but nothing that has ever truly impacted me. I guess the greatest experience in facing stigma or discrimination would be in my work setting. We often take consumers or people living with HIV out for meals, and there have been venues in the past who have come out with like all plastic utensils or paper plates because, you know, they know that we're there from the Ohio AIDS Coalition and that we're bringing HIV positive people. And, you know, it's something that if you take it to heart, it can be very offensive, and it is offensive. But I think that it's all a part of that silence. I think as the epidemic has progressed and people have seen that people are now living longer and we've become more and more silent, that silence has just influenced people to become more and more ignorant about a disease that really they shouldn't be afraid of if they're educated.
How I bring it up to people, I'm going to say how I disclose it to my boyfriends. But I had to, by the way. My boyfriends were very on the ignorant side. They thought as HIV being, and they would talk about it not knowing that I was infected before we ever got together. And actually, I brought it up to them saying, I made them actually get to know me and who I am without the HIV virus. And then I sat them down, like not even, and it could be in the middle of any conversation. And I said, I'm HIV positive, my mom's sick. And they would look at me, they would say, are you serious? And I would say, yeah. They didn't leave me because they know who I am and they're not going to let HIV stop that. So I would say, I would bring it up in like the middle of conversation, let them get to know you for who you are. And when you share something like that you're HIV positive, it actually makes them look at you as a stronger person because you came out, disclosed your status, and it makes them look at you as a stronger person, and they like you a lot more.
My advice would be to the young lady getting ready to go to the club who might be picking up Mr. Right or Mr. Wrong tonight would be to stop by the drugstore. You know, birth control is not enough. Birth control can stop you from getting pregnant. It's not even 100% effective. So my advice to her would be to go to the drugstore and pick up some condoms and put them in her purse or her pocket. Be responsible for your own health.
How do I put this? The stresses of being a mom and being an HIV positive, I enjoy life. I don't look too much. I put the HIV to the back of my mind. I mean, it's always at the front, but when it comes to me being there with my kids, I put my kids more over being HIV positive, and I don't think about it every day. I try not to think about it every day. If somebody asks me about it, then yeah, we'll talk about it. If I want to talk to somebody about it, I just open up my mouth and people just come sit around me and they start listening, and that's one way I vent. And I just try not to think about it, because the more stress I add onto my life, it affects my body, and I'm not willing to get all stressed out over being HIV positive. I'm not going to allow that to happen to me.
The way I learned about dating and sex was trial by fire. You know, I wasn't disclosing my status in high school and had a relationship that turned sexual. And, you know, I was trying my best to, you know, to be safe, but it, you know, it definitely wasn't an enviable situation at all, because I just thought, you know, if I told her about HIV, that she would treat me like an AIDS patient and not a boyfriend. You know, I wasn't worried that she would leave. I was worried that she would stay and I'd be treated differently. I couldn't deal with that. So I learned from that relationship that really, if things get physical or they look like they're headed that way, you have to disclose. You owe it to the person, and it makes things a lot easier. And so I think with each relationship I learned something, and I think that was key. And so when I finally got to the point where I was ready to have sex, it wasn't such a big deal to talk about condoms or to use a condom. So yeah, and I think for me, the reason why I like to discuss those things is because I don't want people to learn through trial by fire. I don't want people to make those mistakes where, you know, where they're just sort of bumbling along and figuring it out as they go. Like, you know, I wish we just had, you know, a more open, honest dialogue about, you know, safe sex in junior high school and high school. I mean, you see things on TV, you know, you see how sexually active young people are. We all know, we were there, you know. We had our friends who got luckier than we did, you know, but it happens, and I think it's part of nature. It's who we are as human beings. And to deny that and to ignore that and think everything's going to sort itself out is a huge mistake. And I just think, you know, I just think we're not being honest in this country about sex. And we have such shame surrounding it. And I think knocking that down, I think, is one of the biggest keys in preventing the spread of HIV and AIDS.
What I would say to people who are not infected with the HIV virus but are taking risks, some of them don't even know that they're taking risks because they also do believe that it can't happen to them, and that I would say is definitely not true because it can happen to everyone. HIV doesn't discriminate. So, and I would like to say this, that there's plenty of people, even if you don't like think it, HIV doesn't like, it's not you're skinny. People go around saying if you're skinny you probably have AIDS. That's not true. And so you could be like sleeping with someone who's HIV positive and you don't even know, or who they themselves don't even know if they're positive because of their partners that they had. So I say that you need to be very protective of yourselves. Just like protect your body because it's all you have until you die. So yeah.
Generally when I speak to youth. And so one of my big messages is that this is a disease that is affecting our generation predominantly. 50% of all new infections are between the ages of 13 to 24. In the US, that's 2 youth every hour. That's just here where we don't even think about it. And as teenagers, we're like, we're invincible. Like, that's not going to touch me. You know, like it's this theory of somewhere else to someone else to the land far away, when in reality, that's not necessarily the truth. And so I think that my message is to be aware of yourself and your surroundings and your health. I would say to somebody who is putting themselves at risk to use a condom. I mean, make sure you protect yourself. Pregnancy is not the only thing we have to worry about these days. There's a lot of other sexually transmitted diseases that you can't get rid of. You don't want to get HIV. I mean, if you do, there's treatment. You can live a normal life, or whatever normal is, but you know, it's just not something, don't go out looking for it.
I tell my story hoping that some people get the positive out of it. They'll help them to learn more about HIV and AIDS. I never thought in my entire life, well, not in my entire life, at least until about 4 years ago, I never thought I'd be talking about HIV and AIDS. that was the furthest from my mind. And it took me to find out that I have HIV and AIDS to learn more about it, and I don't want that to happen to anybody else. I don't want them to learn the way I learned about it. I want them to know about it now rather than learning 4, 5, 6 years down the road when they find out they are HIV positive. And I hope a lot of them do get something good out of it.
I tell my story because I know that I can use my voice to educate. I use my voice to advocate, because the things that have happened in my life, the lessons that I've learned, the journey that I've taken, all can affect people in a different way. You know, even if you can't relate to one single piece of my story, and it's just that, you know, oh, he's from Dublin, Ohio, home of Wendy's. You know, at least you've eaten at a Wendy's, and you know that the average person can live their life thinking that something like HIV could never affect you. And you've related to one piece of my story, so that could be you.
The reason why I would love to tell my story for others to hear is because it's the only way to get people to listen. Most of the time, you could be in school and learn HIV, the biology version of it. It doesn't sink in. Like, I was sitting in biology class back when I was in high school, and I would just stare at my teacher, and I'm like, this is not going to process, and it's not going to stay with me after I graduate. I'm going to forget this after you finish teaching this today. Versus, I am HIV positive. This is how I live with it, and this is what I do. This is how I go about my day. People listen to personal experiences, and they take it to heart because they remember that better. People remember my face from months ago telling my story, and they come to me, "You're that girl at that church, I remember." And oh, that was so inspiring. Ever since then, I joined this organization. I got involved in my community. I tell people to get tested. People remember experiences better than people remember drilled lessons. And this is why I do it. Because they remember experiences, they remember HIV. And they remember it's not that bad. But it is something that needs to be done about. It's not a cripple. It's not a cripple. It's not a crutch. However, it is still a problem. But it's not a problem for each individual. It's a problem for the nation. And I would love that my experiences, and then telling my experience, that people get something out of it. Whether they get educated or they get motivated, something is gotten out of.